Okay, so this picture is I just took it right now and I airdropped it from my iPhone 12 to my MacBook Pro, just to give you a little visual of my little tiny corner desk here that I have this sound system set up that you're listening to right now in this recording with the Shure Super 55 mic, as you can see in my camera here. So this Shure Super 55 is, they call it like an antique style mic, just how it's designed and how it looks. It takes on the form of an antique style mic, but it's one of the most durable mics. You can drop it, kick it around, and it won't generally break very easily. So it's built for rough handling, but also it's pretty large, which means it's able to capture sound a lot more clean than you would more of a compressed mic head, like a Beta 58 or any of those like stage handheld mics. Although this can be set up as a stage handheld, this microphone here, you can just get a small handle to it, and even in this generation, you can actually make this a wireless mic. So this mic here, the Shure Super 55, is one of the best dynamic microphones on the market for the cost. And microphones can get up to like $2,000 or even more per mic. They have some pretty great capsules that are available, but I've tested some of the high-end microphones with really good mic capsules in them. And comparing it to the Shure Super 55, I honestly think the Shure Super 55 for about $400 Canadian can do a really decent job for sound quality if you can really beef it up with software like Ableton. And that's what you see on my Mac on the screen here in this recording is I got Ableton open. So generally you can take any microphone, and as long as you have a very clean raw audio coming in from the microphone and it's not sounding like muffled and compressed like this, that's all that really matters in a microphone. Is it's very clear and you're getting all the frequencies that you need coming into the microphone to be able to produce through software an enhanced audio. So that's the introduction with my mic, and one of the mics I recommend if you're going with dynamic. And also dynamic is generally preferred for any kind of reproduced sound. And when I say reproduced, I'm talking about sound that's going to be projected through PA speakers. If you're going to be pushing out sound into a room or an environment, you would want dynamic microphones. And the dynamic is based on the style of the coil of the microphone capsule, which captures the audio. They have ribbon microphones, which are highly sensitive. You can almost carefully drop it and it would break because the ribbon is so fragile. But ribbon is one of the higher end microphones that capture frequencies on a very sensitive level. So ribbon microphones are mainly for recording. Like if you go to some really high-end audio production studio, if you're going to produce an album or a record, they usually have ribbon mics in the studio room where they have like soundproof rooms that it doesn't pick up any other sound from the environment because ribbons are so sensitive to pick up all the sound of things. So the next level of condenser, I call well, you got ribbon, then you got condenser mics, and condensers are also similar to ribbon, but they are also very highly sensitive in capturing sound. So they're generally used in recording applications for studio rooms and any kind of environment that requires you to capture clean audio. And then take that audio and put it in post-production for producing or composing. So that's condenser and ribbon. And then you have dynamic capsule mics, which are generally in the handheld mics that you see on live stages. Sometimes it's very rare that you would find like a lapel mic that has dynamic capsule. The ear-worn mics, you can have it in dual ear-worn, so one on both ears for a more secure fit. If people are generally more mobile or more active and walking around when they speak, you'd probably want a double ear. I think it's called a headset. Yeah, it's a head-worn microphone, and that's when they use that term when it's a double ear secure fit. And then you have the ear worn, which is a single ear, and it just fits over one ear, and it comes over by your mouth here, and it's a very tiny one. Sometimes you can get bigger ones, bulkier ones, and the more expensive, usually the more smaller they are. But those microphones, you can get them in omnidirectional, unidirectional, which is one direction. So it's basically picking up audio from a single direction source, and that's unidirectional. Or you have omnidirectional, where it captures sound from every angle and like the entire environment. And that's usually what lapel mics are, because lapels sit on a certain area and it can't capture the sound from a specific source, because it's not like an ear-worn mic that comes right directly to your mouth, pointing at your mouth. So omnidirectional mics say, well, we don't know where the lapel is going to be clipped on, so it has to be able to capture sound from every direction. But the problem with that on a live stage is you want to make sure that the source of where you're capturing sound is not being capturing sound from a direction of where sound is being projected, because then you're going to have a looped audio and then a feedback where it creates a really high pitched sound or a feedback in the room. So you're going to have these feedback hotspots, or you're going to have limited mobility of movement to be able to walk around without trying to walk into a zone where it's going to create feedback. So this is some of the problems that are with lapel-based microphones, because they are more sensitive to have hotspots of feedback because they are omnidirectional. And also because they're omnidirectional, they also pick up sound of your shirt moving around. Like, you don't really hear that in a dynamic microphone, but in a lapel, you'd probably hear a lot of like going on, and you don't want that in the recording. So that's one major issue that can happen with lapel omnidirectional. But I haven't really come across a lapel that is unidirectional and a dynamic. So you need to know two things. One is the type of capsule, whether it's condenser or whether it's dynamic, and then also based on which capsule that is. Now, is it omnidirectional, unidirectional, or is it like bidirectional? Because there's actually I think 5 or 6 different designs of a particular capsule, and I can kind of pull that up here. Is they call them cardioid, supercardioid, and let me just actually open up Google here for a second and see cardioid capsule, and hopefully you're seeing this in the diagram types. I'm probably not typing this properly, but it came up anyways. Cardioid capsule diagram types. It's not called cardioid capsule diagram types. Basically, it's a microphone capsule, and then there are types, and cardioid is actually one of them. So I didn't search this properly, but it came up anyways. And this is what it is right here. There you go. So these are the capsule types. You have omnidirectional, see, like I just mentioned here in the right hand side here, and this picks up sound from all directions. And then you have subcardioid, which means it's mainly picking up sound from the front, but it also picks up a little bit of sound from the back. And this one here, which is cardioid, which is generally found in most all stage handheld mics, is just general cardioid. And the reason why it looks like kind of like a mushroom here, where it picks up sound from the front end, but then it kind of curves in and it points in around the back, which means directly at the back of that mic, as you're holding it, directly at the back, it completely does not pick up any sound. So wherever the rear of the microphone is facing, it doesn't pick up sound, which is really good. So it can help people know, and it also prevents PA speakers from being able to feedback, because completely opposite direction of the mic is a complete dead zone for picking up sound. So it doesn't give you any feedback. So that's really good. But the subcardioid on the left here, which is the second one, this is to pick up a little bit of sound from the back. So sometimes when you're in a large concert hall or a large stadium, compared to like a small room environment, the subcardioid would serve a better purpose than a cardioid mic, because the PA speakers are generally placed much further away because you're in a larger room environment, so there's less risk of getting feedback. But also, this kind of shape of the microphone capsule for audio input is going to be able to capture a little bit of the sound from the people in the room. And sometimes you would want that. Like, for example, sometimes you would hear people clapping, or you'd hear people cheering, or just the sound of the audience would be able to come into the microphone just a little bit. So it's mainly capturing the voice of the vocalist, as you see in the front. It's like a big curve here on the front, so it picks up most of the sound from the front of the mic, which is the head of the mic. But the back of the mic picks up a very small amount of sound, so you also don't block out the sound of the audience from the recording. So that is generally what that's used for. And but cardioid blocks out the sound of the audience, and it only captures the sound of the person speaking into the mic. And that's generally why, as you can see now, that's generally why it's mostly used in most applications, because it's one of the best shapes of microphone capsule for the lowest feedback issues. And then you have supercardioid, which picks up generally a little bit more of the audience than the subcardioid. And then you also have, where is it here? It's in the way. Hypercardioid, and then bidirectional, which means it picks up sound from both directions, but not left to right. So these are the different shapes of polar patterns. See, that's the word I was looking for. I was looking for it right here. It's called a polar pattern. That's the term. So as I was speaking here, I was just saying the shape of the microphone, but it's not. It's called a polar pattern of the capsule. That's what it is, sorry. It slipped my mind, and I was trying to speak and explain things without properly explaining it, but it's called a polar pattern. So when you see this diagram of different polar patterns, these are the different polar patterns based on the capsule, which can either be condenser or dynamic. So that's a little bit about the mic. So this Shure Super 55 is a supercardioid. So as you see in the front here, this is the front of the microphone. Let me turn it a little bit here. Sorry, I'm making popping sounds because I'm grabbing the mic. So the front of the mic, where my finger is, it's picking up the sound very clear. But also behind the mic, if I snap my fingers, you're able to hear that just very slightly compared to the front. See? So if I snap my fingers in the front, it's really loud because it's a supercardioid. It captures most of the sound from the front, but it captures a tiny bit of sound from the back. So these Shure Super 55s are one of the best mics to be on a stage, because it captures a very small amount of the ambience of the room, but mainly the voice of the speaker, and it has little feedback or possible feedback because of the way the polar pattern is shaped on the capsule. But again, even greater, so if you're in a room that has so many feedback issues, because you're just in a jam-packed, tiny little room, you'd probably want to be going with cardioid, or I would say probably being restricted to be using a cardioid mic. But if you're in a medium-sized room, you would definitely want to go to a supercardioid or hypercardioid or subcardioid. But you would never want to go to an omnidirectional. And the reason I say that is because picking up sound from every direction in a room you'd only want to be doing that in an environment where there's no projected audio, like a recorded environment, or you're in a room where there's no PA speakers and you're wanting to capture like just a dialogue of people speaking around the room. Yeah, then you'd want to use an omnidirectional to capture the entire sound of the environment of the room, rather than a specified audio source. So that's giving a brief introduction on microphones. So that can also help with this knowledge. It can help you plan what type of microphones to get based on the type of environment you're going to be using these microphones. Because you can't just go say, oh, let's go look at an expensive microphone and think that this microphone is going to be the best in the room and it's going to sound, you know, like one of these Hollywood productions. No, it's not the case. Each microphone is designed for a purpose, for a particular environment, for a specific application. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is know your microphones and then know what they're designed for and get the right one for the right application and environment. So that's a brief introduction on microphones, and also to explain a little bit about the microphone I'm using in this recording, as you see.